We had a quick technical hiccup with all of this. So we're switching platforms. We've got a new link, and this should be live on all of our platforms. So I'm seeing your comments coming in through LinkedIn, and I believe we should be live now. We should be up and running. So if you could please comment and let me know that you're seeing the video now, that would be great. Avi will be joining me in just a second. And here he comes. So, Avi, you're here on the screen with me. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'm taking a look at the chat to just try to make sure that we do have everybody there. Okay, Rebecca is confirming she does see us now. So it looks like we are successfully live right now. We're going
How
to
awesome is
try
that?
to get the team working on the back end. So new platforms, we're having a good time.
Well, I
And
think the good news is that it largely mimics life and business, right? I mean, you try and fail until you get success, and then everybody has a big smile for 30 seconds, and then we keep on trying.
exactly. So we're in a good place now, which again, hopefully mimics life. I'd like us to all be in a good place. And yeah, it's not really a webinar or virtual conversation if there aren't technical difficulties. So you know what? Here we go. It's a new day. It's a beautiful day. It's mid-afternoon here in Cleveland, a bright morning for you, Avi, in California. And we're live now. So hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us on our first LinkedIn Live with Nexa 3D. And of course, it's not only LinkedIn. So thank you and welcome to everyone else joining us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and our other platforms. Today, we are reintroducing the 3D Printing Leadership Forum series from Nexa 3D. This series initially launched in 2020 as COVID-19 emerged and bubbled us all. As 3D printing rose to the forefront of efforts to combat not just the pandemic, but the supply chain shortages it caused, virtual gatherings like these afforded an opportunity to gather the community and to listen and learn. We're hoping now to continue these conversations, and we have plans to bring on a variety of brilliant guests in a monthly live forum. Today, we're starting small with your hosts, Avi Reichental and myself. I am Sarah Goehrke. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Communications and Ecosystems at Nexa 3D. And while I'm relatively new to the company, I've been working in the 3D printing industry since 2014. I've been leading in industry media and working on the board of directors at Women in 3D Printing. Last year, I also developed the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, or DEI, programming at Women in 3D Printing. And Avi, of course, generally needs no introduction at all, but still. Avi, would you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Sarah, and it's really great to be here, and it's great to be here with you because it was with you that we launched this forum originally during kind of the early dark days of COVID. So, my name is Avi Reichental. I am the co-founder and CEO of Nexa 3D. I have been in the industry now going on my 19th year. I am a maker, an innovator. I love creating and making things. And most of all, I love the fact that together in our community on this journey, we can really make impact and improve humanity as we know it. I mean, that's what gets me up in the morning. That's why I'm here. And of all the things that I am blessed to get to do every day, hanging out with kindred spirits all day long is the favorite part of my life. So thank you for reconvening us, Sarah. and let's have fun.
For sure. We're going to keep today's conversation, kind of casual, kind of fun. I can see your comments coming in. And so, engage. We've got a couple topics in mind to discuss today, but we do want to know what everyone wants to hear about. And so let's look back. Let's look back at 2021. It was another difficult year. It was another brilliant year. And it was a year of challenge and opportunity. From there, we'll take a look ahead to what we can expect in 2022, maybe dust off our crystal balls a little bit. And, naturally, we will be focusing primarily through the additive manufacturing lens. But we all know by now that this technology touches on so many wider areas of impact. So, Avi, let's start last year. How would you describe some of the key trends we saw in 2021?
Well, I would start by saying that the benefit of having lots of gray and white hair is that you think that you get to see a lot and learn from others, learn from my own mistakes, and be stronger and more resilient for it. I have to say that not just 2021, but 2020, the last 2 years have been a period of just unparalleled challenges. I mean, I haven't read any book, I don't have any manual that would have prepared me or anybody for this environment, both on a business level, on a family level, on kind of an emotional resiliency level, and kind of on a human behavior level. So it was really unprecedented. Add to that the need to keep business and society going, and then kind of zooming into what we do, which is trying to advance Nexa 3D and the additive manufacturing category during a time which it really came into focus because of its ability to demonstrate convincingly that it can solve, certainly the immediate supply chain challenges in many areas. It was a tough year to keep a business going, to keep innovation going, to help our teammates lift themselves up of the daily uncertainty and anxiety and health concerns and the whole dislocation of human connection. And it was tough to see customers. It was tough to meet with partners. And I have to say, to me, that was the biggest challenge. The need to innovate how we work, how we communicate, how we connect. It wasn't so much about can we advance product development. That was actually a nice escape. I could leave my home and go to the office as early as we were able to reopen, which was quite early. And the best escape from all these concerns and challenges was to hang out with our engineers in the R&D labs and to continue to advance the product, to talk business strategy, to camp for, I don't know, it seems like millions of hours on Zoom, talking to other screens with other anxious people that try to do the same, to kind of drowning in action as to not to face, some of the uncertainty of what's going on. But kind of taking it out of how it felt for me and our teammate, our challenge was clear. There was an opportunity to push ahead on innovation and use this period of, if you will, lockdown and isolation to A, take care of our people, B, make sure that we can really turbocharge our innovation and development, keep everybody engaged and motivated, and use it as an opportunity to reinvent how we do business nowadays, how we communicate, how we collaborate, how we partner, how we create demand for what we do, how we educate the market. And I think the more that we do that, it made us stronger, more agile, more resilient, and probably more connected, because it's so much harder to connect now on a human level. The quality of the connections when you get them, it's pretty awesome. Add to that how you recruit teammates, how do you add more nexters to the family in a time that it's more likely than not that you're only going to interview them and meet them on Zoom. How do you onboard them? How do you get to know your teammates and develop trust and converge on, why we're here and what we want to do? We can talk about this for days. I mean, it's like learning to ride a bicycle all over again, except it has jet engines, rocket engines.
It's quite a superpowered bicycle we're all relearning to ride. And, as someone who joined this team during this period of Zoom, it's been interesting. It's something I've personally had experience with. I've worked remotely since I joined the industry. So I'm used to Zoom, I'm used to remote, but this is the biggest team I've worked with. So it's been really interesting to see how connected I still feel to everyone, and how even when, we don't have as many events in person, or they're planned in person and then brought back onto our screens, or just on our screens to start with, it's such an interesting way to get to know people. And I feel like there is definitely a way to see how personal business can really be. This is my home office, so welcome directly into my home, everybody. This is where my family lives, but this is where I work every day and where I have worked every day. And I think when you work with a strong team that values the human aspect, you feel more comfortable to bring your human self to that, even if it's through your computer screen. And so, now that it's January, though, of 2022, why don't we kind of consider what's next, where we're going, where we are, what we've learned from everything we've been through so far. We're all here gearing up for an exciting and very busy new year, and it is one that is still in the midst of an ongoing pandemic, still facing issues like supply chain disruption and the Great Resignation. So let's talk about those challenges that are impacting the AM space. We have unfortunately seen a few well-known operations in this industry and related to this industry, like Local Motors, ACO, and Digital Metal, shutter their operations. We've seen Organovo change their strategy, and we've also seen other companies somehow thrive. So, Avi, I'd like to pick your brain on this a little bit. What do you see as the differentiating strategy that leads companies to either hiring an investment or closing their doors?
Well, I think a lot of it, Sarah, depends first and foremost on what is the business of the company, and did it have the technology, the business model, the go-to market, and the traction necessary to not just survive, but to thrive pre-COVID. Because what happens in periods like COVID is it kind of, if you will, exacerbates all of the conditions for everybody. It's kind of perpetual low tide, and where we say that high tide can lift all boats, you can begin to see in low tide, which boats can run aground. And businesses that are strong, businesses that uh, have tomorrow's business models, businesses that solve real problems, uh, will survive in periods like this if they also have good leadership and good stewardship, because some fundamentals of business don't change. I mean, at the end of every month you need to have enough cash to move on to the next month. So managing your cash in downtimes is very important. Allocating cash is very important. In periods like this, in which certain activities cannot go as planned, what do you feed and what do you starve? Difficult decisions, but you need to make them with clarity of intention and purpose up front. At what stage of development is the company? Is the company already in growth and revenue generation mode, in which it can have more opportunities and more challenges, or is the company still in a pre-revenue and product development mode, in which it will need to have enough of a runway to survive a period of uncertainty like this? So it starts with what you do and don't do to maintain and enhance your business. And it kind of calls into question the viability of your business. And the reality is, like it or not, I mean, businesses that don't have business to be in business might chug along during high tide periods in which, prosperity and abundance of access to capital and irrational exuberance of investors can cover a lot of sins. And when you go into a period that is trying or challenging economically on a global basis, some businesses don't make it. I don't think that that answers, why companies like Local Motors didn't make it. I mean, Jay Rogers is an incredible entrepreneur and have hung in there for a long, long time, and also managed to pivot multiple times. And my sense is we'll see him in another disruptive role in the future. But sometimes we have ideas that are ahead of the market. Oftentimes, as we enter what I call the 6 Ds of exponential growth, we go into a very lengthy period of deceptive growth. And if your supporters, if your teammates, if your investors are not patient enough to understand that eventually you're going to go, into the disruptive mode, you might lose this particular round. I mean, it's sad to see good companies not make it, but it happens every day, and it's part, if you will, of the serial entrepreneurship that's the rocket fuel that fuels innovation in our economy.
Absolutely. And I know, in the case of Local Motors, I was surprised to see that happen. I missed the initial word that they were closing, and I don't think they've put out a press release at this point, but their employees have been sharing the story of that. But Local Motors was one of the first companies I heard about when I joined this industry in 2014, and everything that they were doing was just cool, just 3D printing a car and just driving it up the red carpet. That's cool. That's style points, but there's so much more to business than a cool idea. And, you noted how they had been pivoting, how they've changed strategy. We saw their Stratty car. We saw them move over to Ollie, the automated shuttle. And I think we do know there's clearly a place for 3D printing technologies in the automotive sector. And whether that's fully 3D printed cars, some 3D printed components, making ergonomic tooling on the line. Every company from Divergent to BMW and Volkswagen, Ford, GM, they're using these technologies. And so it really is creating that business case around what it does and realizing we function in a capitalist world and difficult business conditions and different business conversations and decisions obviously weigh into that. And disruption's hard. Everything that we're doing with these exponentially growing technologies, no one pretends that revolution is easy, that any industrial revolution has been simple or straightforward or in any way linear. We've all seen the Gartner growth curve, and there are different places in that. But I know one thing that we've talked about a lot, Avi, is that it's the people behind these innovations that really drive strategy, drive success, and are the push behind everything. And so I think we do need to touch on the human aspect of all of this. And one big human aspect we're seeing right now in action is being called the Great Resignation. So it's tough out there, and it's tough out there for everyone. There are conversations around the changing workplace as well, with remote and hybrid teams by choice and by necessity. And that changing workplace is changing the way we think about staying connected within our own teams. And so building on that, there are a couple of topics I want us to touch on here. The idea of intentionality in creating and evolving a company culture, how you keep those core values with a growing team, especially when some people, some colleagues haven't met face to face. And then, as far as teams go, we're also pushing forward in the vital area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So DEI is obviously a deep passion of mine in this industry, and it's one that we absolutely share. And I've been so fortunate to have those conversations with you. But each of these is really, it's a huge topic. So they are relevant as well to what we face with our own team at Nexa 3D. So we can take this a little bit, personal for right now for us. Just off the bat, let's start with those hybridized teams. I'm in Cleveland. You're in Ventura. We've got Mike in Boston, Sean's in Connecticut, Nina and Melissa are in Minnesota, Jim's in Texas. We have colleagues in the UK. And then, of course, we've got colleagues, partners, resellers all over the world. So Avi, how are we staying connected, and how are you prioritizing that connection as the CEO?
Yeah, well, the way that you're describing it, I'm beginning to think that hopefully it's less challenging than being the Speaker of the House, in the House of Representatives. But but look, let me say first that for me this was in a way an eye-opener because I spent 40 plus years in a traditional workplace, and our business in particular is very hands-on. It's kind of, it requires haptic experiences. You need to touch what you're developing. You need to see what's happening, and you need to interact with teammates that are excited about solving the daily challenges that get uncovered in the process. So it was kind of an eye-opener that technology can be used to overcome some of it, not completely, but could be done to overcome it. And I very quickly, kind of the coin dropped in my head around March or April of 2020 that we can either be resigned to the fact that most of our teammates will work from home for a long period of time, or we can turn it into an advantage. And the way that I came to think about it is, first, COVID accelerated a trend that was in the making for many, many years. And, we can try to reverse it or contain it, or we can unleash it and have access to the best talent around the world. And at Nexa, we opted to unleash it and embrace it. The second is that the Great Resignation, at least in our case, became, the most successful recruiting campaign, at least in my own employment history, which is quite extensive. And I learned that with flexibility and an open mind, and the tenacity to go after the best of the best, you can attract amazing talent to the company. But that it's not about resigning from one place and joining another. It's about attraction. And so what attracts people to convene and work together in this day and age? From my perspective, the first attraction is that I can hang out with a kindred spirit. How cool would that be, and how rare it is nowadays that you can say, yeah, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to get to hang out with Sarah and with Nina and with Mike, and with Jake and with Kevin. I look forward to that. How many people can say that? The second is the realization that many of us have known one another from a distance for many, many decades, right? I mean, it's a small industry. It's a very vibrant community. Many of us have worked for other companies in the industry. So the opportunity to get together, to kind of assemble the band and make the best music of our career together, or as I like to think about it, let's do the best work of our career together on this next leg of the journey. I think the Great Resignation enabled that kind of a mindset. And we certainly benefited from it because we got it, we understood it. And the third is, how do we create a culture that not only survive this transition or this seismic event, but actually thrives in it? And that's the hardest thing to do. And what we have learned, and you know this, Sarah, because we talk about this on a weekly basis, first, it's about authenticity. I mean, culture, and I also think customer relationships and partnerships start with authenticity, because the insides have to match the outsides. And in a way, I think that this is, like you said, here's my house. I'm talking to you from my house. I live here. My son is next door. My husband may be working out of the house or not in some cases. It kind of metaphorically and fundamentally, it forces us to be more transparent and more authentic than we would have been 10 years ago sitting in some cubicle in the office. So there is a huge advantage. The second is learning how to over communicate. If we don't have the face-to-face and the high touch, we still have the tech to compensate for it as much as possible. And we are learning, I think, every time when we do it. And some of the people that are listening to us are now on YouTube or on LinkedIn, on all the other streaming channels. It's becoming normal to to relate and interact with people just by looking at a screen. So the more that we do it, I think it becomes real and it becomes expected. And part of our mixed reality, which will also continue to evolve, right? I mean, we're going to see more mixed reality technology. And who knows, one day probably we will all live in the metaverse, with Zuckerberg, and we'll have these conversations in kind of a second life, right? But fundamentally, I think that over communicating in this environment, because we're not together all the time, finding opportunities to connect by the virtual coffee machine or the kitchen is much more important. And also having the presence of mind to still get together as much as possible physically and spend time building trust, building a relationship, reinforcing the culture, spending more time with people than you would otherwise in the periods that we are together, so that we all know that we have each other's back. But we also get to learn more about each other, our hobbies, our spouses, our kids, our quirks. Are we normal people? Do we spill beer on our shoes when we go out to dinner? Those are all important parts of building an authentic culture in a period in which it's very, very hard to do. We even take into having happy hours on Zoom with wine and beer, just to and tell stories, just to make sure that we don't lose that part of what makes a business and a company great.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And, a business, a company, a community, an industry, all of these things, there are so many ways. I mean, we keep talking about 2020, 2021, and now 2022 being this unprecedented period, but that's not just because of a pandemic. And, let's face it, it's barely been a century since the last pandemic. Well, obviously we had several other endemics, and anyway, disease always happens, and sometimes it does crazy things to the world. But part of, I think, what makes this COVID-19 pandemic so unprecedented is the connectivity we have now. It's the first pandemic of the 21st century, and we're really seeing how we can rely on Wi-Fi, on where our priorities are. I never really thought about the integrated webcam on my laptop before this. It was there, but now I was like, I need an HD camera, I need a ring light, I need to make sure my Wi-Fi is stable, because I need to connect to the people I work with and trust and want to communicate with. And it's not just meetings and meetings and meetings. And let's not pretend I'm not fresh on this live stream out of 2 or 3 meetings already this morning. Which I am. But last night, Alexander Daniels Global organized their latest Zoom networking, and I had a glass of wine with some wonderful people from around the world. We connected on LinkedIn from there, and now we've got plans to meet up at AMUG and Rapid this spring, assuming the world is safe enough to do so then. We did recently see 3D Experience World pivot from being a hybrid event in Atlanta and online to being fully online. So it's been interesting for me to see how our team has been adjusting to that. And Mike Curry, our GM of the Zip, of the desktop business line now that we have, he pivoted his entire presentation to be ready for a virtual audience. It's just a different way of connecting. And I think it's another language we're all becoming fluent in. I've never spent so much time on Slack as I have the last few months, and it's great. We can communicate as quickly as if we were in the next office over. And now I can get the business answer I need and send a meme along with it, because who doesn't want to know that? Or the dog I just adopted this past weekend, he's a senior, and as it turns out, he has the smelliest farts in the world. So he'll do that on a Zoom call. I was on a Zoom call with Kristen and Claire from our team yesterday, and my new dog Dandelion was being a good office dog behind me, and oh my gosh, he was so sweet until he farted himself awake, and it was terrible for me. But we get that sense of bringing ourselves to work. And that's also something that I know we're really emphasizing as we talk about how do we bring our whole self to work? Because that's when we do our best work. When I don't have to pretend there's not a farty dog in my office, when I don't have to pretend my 2-year-old son isn't, upstairs, maybe doing the Mamba directly above my office. Actually, I think he's learning river dance, so he's very talented. But sometimes you can hear my ceiling shaking on a Zoom call, and it's because there's a toddler, and we just say, I'm also a mom. In addition to everything I do, I'm a mom. And, we have these conversations more and more now, and we can't stress enough, I think, the importance of feeling that psychological safety is the term that I learned. I took a course through Cornell this past year. It was a long certificate course in diversity and inclusion for HR. And so I'm also really thrilled to bring that work to what I do, not just at Women in 3D Printing, but with Nexa, and see how we build that safety net you were talking about, Avi, that sense of security, of wanting to bring our best selves to work, to do the best work of our careers. And it means we need to bring ourselves, our whole selves. If I have to shutter away the part of me that is a mom, the part of me that does work with a nonprofit, the part of me that does diversity work, the part of me that's a book editor, the part of me that's an actor, then who's left? What's left for me to bring to my colleagues? It's not going to be my whole self. And so that comes down to that investment, that intentionality about being human with each other. And it's what drew me to want to work with someone like you, with the team I had a relationship with at Nexa. I've had the great fortune of working with more than 24 companies across this industry directly in the last couple of years, as well as on the media side. But what it was at Nexa was how personable everyone is, how we could all just talk, just connect, say, I've got a farty dog, but I also have an idea about how we can streamline and make more sustainable our new product line, and how that can directly impact people's lives and shorten supply chains, localize production, reduce carbon footprint, and all of these things that matter, and so let's kind of talk about that a little bit, because I'm a new hire at Nexa, and I'm not alone. I was the new kid on the block for a day maybe before we had someone else in. So when a company is founded, there are usually a few core values that each person on that initial small team shares. And, that vision snowballs and becomes something greater and turns into the company. And newer faces might be drawn to those values, but they also bring in their own perspectives. They bring in their own backgrounds and new views. So what does it take to be intentional to keeping true to the core foundational values while also evolving with the team and with the times?
No, it's a great question, Sarah, because I think since you joined, we added another 45 Nexers to the team, and onboarding and embracing new teammates, understanding that they're coming into an environment that has a unique culture, but that they're bringing their whole selves with them. Is an area that is very time consuming, and by far and away the most important investment of my time and everybody else's time. You do it by doing really good hands-on onboarding, by teaching what makes a company like Nexa who we are, which is, we're intensely curious. We are humble, but very driven. We're hungry, but hungry for success, that solves real problems, not at the expense of one another. We want to do it, by, you know, using the golden rule every day in our dealings with one another. We want to do things that matter. We don't have time and tolerance for office politics, because we want to put all of our energy and attention on solving grand challenges to improve humanity and the planet. And we're really focusing on democratizing access to new tools and new technologies that could improve how we create and make things orders of magnitude. And so I think that when we invest the time, when people that join the company from the get-go don't join because they're looking for just a paycheck, because we live in the Great Resignation, in which most employees have more leverage over their pay and place of work than ever before in the history of mankind. So why come work for Nexa if you can go work for 50 or 100 other companies anywhere you want? Come work for Nexa because you like what we offer you, not just the pay. It's more the culture. It's more the opportunity to hang out with kindred spirits, and it's to embrace this way of life that says, we debate vigorously. We're intensely curious. Once we make decisions, it's all hands on deck. We go and we execute. We respect one another, and we're going to be hungry and humble, and we're going to treat each other with dignity and respect because we care about each other and because it's a team sport. And ultimately, we all understand that nothing happens unless somebody is willing to pay for it. I mean, the only way that we get valued at the end of the day is not on our intellect, it's not on our resourcefulness, it's not on how clever we are, it's not even on how great our products are, unless and until an independent party called the customer comes and say, here, I'm willing to open my wallet and value what you've created and pay for it. And then another customer does it, and another customer does it. And before you know, you have a community of customers. And that's when you can look at each other in the eye and say, wow, what we're doing really is making a difference. Same thing happens with partners and collaborations. You know that I'm really big on collaborations because I think that we live in a day and age in which together everybody can achieve more, win more. But how do you create a culture that is open to collaborations? Most companies by nature tend to be closed up. They want to protect what's their own. They look at market growth, as a zero-sum game. I get it at your expense. If I give you more, I get less. And opening that up and understanding that together we can accelerate the development of this market, that together we can achieve more in a shorter amount of time for the benefit of all of our constituents, is also an important part of the culture. And for most companies, particularly larger organizations, it's much harder to unlearn what they know and to train this new collaborative muscle. And in the process, also reminding everybody that as a company, we have a North Star. We have a massive transformative purpose, which is the reason why we get up every morning. It's what keeps us going, even on days that we don't know how to solve something or we have a setback. And that is that we exist to digitize supply chain sustainably. The digitizing part is obvious because we know that the more that we digitize it, the more it will be democratized down the road. Supply chain perhaps wasn't obvious pre-COVID, but I think everybody now understands how brittle, how complex, how expensive, and how unsustainable from a carbon footprint point of view the current supply chain is. And I think it's top of mind on every product company CEO's agenda. And certainly our industry is uniquely positioned to be a huge part of this solution, not by greenwashing it and paying it lip service, but by actually taking decisive steps to offer solutions and products that can be part of decarbonizing and hyper-localizing and minimizing all the undesired effects of manufacturing. And the ability to, from the get-go, at the ground level of new product design, insist and discuss and debate how to employ circular economy design principles into a product or into a service is also a huge part of our culture. And it's amazing to see how much deeper our teammates, our Nexers, reach inside themselves when they get it that, hey, what I'm designing today, and we saw it particularly with the Zip desktop 3D printer that we're bringing to market in the next couple of months. We saw it. I mean, the more that our teammates understood, you know, when Kenyon and Miguel and Benil and others understood that, hey, we're not just designing a product, we're designing something that eventually, you know, will have an opportunity either to be part of a sustainable solution or a contributor to the problem. The way that they started thinking about what materials are we going to select, what's going to be the user experience, how do we minimize energy and waste, what will the end life of this product look like, and how will it be either recycled or downcycled, which affected material selection. All of that happened organically because of this North Star that is a big part of our culture. So I know I'm kind of rambling, but you got me going there on culture. Yeah.
That's such a big part. And, you know, I came on board right before the Zip was introduced at Formnext. So I got to help with that, you know, last push in the messaging. And so one of the first things I learned when I talked to you about it, when I talked to Benil and to the engineering team who created the Zip, I was so floored by the fact that they designed a printer and then they were like, wait, you know, back it up. How does this actually look like when it's to market, when a consumable is sent out to the customer and they're done with the container? Can they recycle it? Do they have to ship it back to us? Let's take that back. And that's why there's so much aluminum in the body of the printer itself and in the canisters for the materials, because aluminum is the single most recycled material on Earth. And that can be recycled anywhere because of that commonality of actually recycling aluminum, and the fact that it's not, you know, a dedicated waste stream of like, oh, ship it back across maybe the world to Ventura, California, to, you know, be refilled or recycled, reused. You can do that at home. Like, let's shorten all of the steps in there. And, you know, everything you were saying about collaboration rings so true, because even if, say, Nexa 3D somehow did zero carbon footprint, zero emissions, shortened supply chains, everything that we made was produced locally and enabled complete hyper local production for every customer we had, you know, that's the dream, right? But what does that do? in the face of the world. We're not the only production company on the planet. We're not the only production company in this industry. And without all of us working together with that shared vision as a greater North Star, what percent impact can we have? What action is there actually happening? What's happening there, And so when you bring up the point that all boats rise in a rising tide, we need to look at the tide, we need to focus on the moon that's guiding the tides, not just staying in the harbor and looking at our own boat. And so I think that's why we want to have these conversations, especially, and really bring everyone in, And so today, Avi, you and I are starting these conversations again. And we had some of these chats a year and 2 years ago that I was happy that you brought me in to moderate when I was running my company, Additive Integrity. Those were amazing. And now we get to do this together all the time. And we're going to be doing these conversations on a monthly basis. And we'll be focusing on so many of our things, so many of our company pillars on, sustainability, on diversity, on local production, supply chain flexibility, productivity and speed in additive manufacturing, what that means for production. But bigger picture, what does that mean to the world? What does that mean for supply chain, for logistics, for rock stars? What does that mean for artists on stage? What does that mean for local manufacturers? What does that mean for Etsy shop owners? What does that mean for everyone who makes things? And you know what? Everyone makes things. So while we still have a couple of minutes left with everyone who's awesome enough to be joining us live, I would like, Avi, if we dig into some of the questions I'm seeing pop up in our chat. So these do touch on a lot of things. One that we're going to start with right now is the most recent question we have in, because we brought it up talking about the creation of the zip. So Rebecca asks, what is Nexa 3D's stance on right to repair for your own machines? And would you consider enabling customers to fix their own machines by 3D printing parts? So, I do also know the zip was designed to be upgradable. It's a modular system and launching with a 4K LCD, but will it stay 4K forever? Maybe not. So what can you do?
So,
I
think it's a great question. By design, as you said, Sarah, the zip is modular. It's easy to assemble and disassemble. So, as witnessed by the latest 3D nerd Joel Telling's video, which I highly recommend. It's entertaining, fun, and informative. But you'll see if you watch his video, Rebecca, I see him assembling a complete machine from the ground up while explaining what he's doing.
That was a lot of fun. We had Joel Telling it at our HQ. And Claire, if you could drop the link to that in the chat right now, we want to make sure people can see Joel putting the entire system together and how it's designed for that modularity.
Yeah, so what you'll see is that you could easily do your own repairs. And if you wanted to print some parts to enhance or repair your machine, you can do it with our blessing. And in fact, drop us a line when you do it. We want to learn with you and from you, because you might have better ideas. I mean, that's a big part of community and collaborations. And while we hope that you wouldn't have much need to repair it at all, because we try to make it really all about printing, not about tinkering, we want to learn from you. And, we want, if you have better ideas on how to enhance it, you can talk to us all day long.
Which is the other nice thing about a growing team. We're increasingly easy to get a hold of. So, questions, ideas, thoughts, suggestions, your tips and tricks, let us know. We want to know. We want to work with you. And we do work with amazing partners, which again is a big part of why this team attracted me. And it's partners who share values and share that focus on what your system can do for you, not like how you can make it look good, but how the system can help you. And Cindy and the team at Henkel have been remarkable partners in, keeping a focus on materials that customers need, as well as those shared values as well, along the lines of sustainability, diversity, and real world impact. So we're going to move into a couple of the other questions we have in here now. So Guy asks, do you think that being hungry in the additive manufacturing ecosystem is more important than in other industries?
No, I think that being hungry and humble and agile and resourceful is important in anything that you do. It's not a trait or a mindset or a culture that is exclusive for 3D printing. You can have an ice cream store, or you can have a bagel shop, or you could be the biggest metal stamping factory in the world. You need to bring those basic traits and operating philosophy and authenticity into everything that you do. And to begin with, kind of going back to a previous question about companies that failed, if you want to be successful in business, you don't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to build a great business, or if I do, I will be a millionaire or a billionaire. What you say is, I'm going to solve a really tough problem that needs solving, that the world needs solving, that the market needs solving. And if I do it well, and if I do it, with value and integrity and collaborations, I will then have a great business. That's kind of the starting point, right? You don't get up in the morning and say, I'm going to build the biggest company in the world. You say, I'm going to solve one of the biggest problems, and then I'll have a great company. And to get there, you need to be hungry. You need to be humble. You need to be resourceful. And most of all, you need to be human.
At the end of the day, we are all human. I mean, except for my farty dog. But that's what, makes the difference. So we have a follow-up again from Rebecca on that question about hunger. So she asks if Nexa 3D has a strategy for structuring KPIs for employees in a way that accommodates failures that are out of their control, thinking mostly of supply chain disruptions, which can make a product GA delayed for reasons that can't be helped.
Well, it's a great question in the sense of how do you set yourselves up to succeed, particularly within areas that are not entirely in our control. And my answer to that is it's less about KPIs. It's more about real-time communications and understanding how to solve for the things that are not entirely in our control. And supply chain is a very kind of present danger, if you will, for all businesses that make something. And we talk about supply chain at least several dozen times a week to make sure that we're connecting the dots, to make sure that if we're designing a product that has a critical component that's not going to be available now for another 60 weeks or 80 weeks, we understand how to mitigate that now. We don't wait until later. So it's more about communication and kind of cross-functional collaboration in terms of this is the new reality. We have all these unforeseen challenges. How do we navigate together so that we don't have to wait 50 weeks or 60 weeks for something? And it could be its own topic of, how do you set a team for success? Yes, ownership, accountability, KPIs, kind of dashboards for performance are very important, but setting people to succeed by understanding that every problem has a solution if you know who to involve in it and who to tap into the conversation, and that getting there is part of the innovation. It's less about managing the project schedule. It's more about managing the outcome. That's a whole other discussion that we can have it, in one of our future chats.
Yes, and I think that does leave us on a really strong note today, Avi. And touching on future chats, we will be back in February doing another LinkedIn Live. And now that I've got a better handle on the technical controls, hopefully with fewer hiccups for the direct link ahead of time. So thank you for everyone who joined us live today. And for those of you who are watching the replay, we will be back in February as Avi and I bring in a guest familiar to the industry as a thought leader in their own right to discuss more of the big issues that we're facing in 2022. So thank you for joining us, Avi. Thank you as always for sharing your time and your thoughts. It's always a pleasure. So everybody keep in touch, reach out, stay healthy, stay well, be kind, and we'll see you later.
You got it. And Sarah, I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together and hosting it. You're an amazing partner. And really, I think we got out of this conversation a lot. I'm crushed that we didn't get to any of the topics, the trends and the predictions and all of that. But I think that what we did discuss was more important and timely and authentic. And I'm hoping that this expands our community and the dialogue. So if you guys have other questions, send them our way. And if you have suggestions on how we could improve the community and the dialogue, serve them up. Until then, as Sarah said, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected.
You can find us on LinkedIn to connect with any direct thoughts. Visit us at nexa3d.com to find out more about the portfolio, the company, the team. And we do look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And thank you so much for your engagement. We'll be back.
Bye. High five.